What's up there, Workforce? Chris here with Work to Game, and we're going to talk about Scottzone. I'm going to try to keep this short. It will be longer than Brian's video, I can assure you that. So I want to start from the beginning and kind of catch people up for anybody that is missing part of the context. So there may be parts of this you already know. Just trying to make sure everybody's on the same page before I get to my opinion of how this was handled and how this should be handled. So first of all, Scott is a member of the community. He's a member of the 14 community that has played MMORPGs, massively multiplayer, online, role-playing games for a very long time. He predominantly played World of Warcraft, and he has since moved to Final Fantasy XIV around the same time that he decided to go full-time on Twitch. For our initial reactions and stuff, I stand by everything Brian said in our video yesterday. That's a much more emotional, guttural, just instant response. And I think Brian did an excellent job of putting it out there. So if you're just looking for a reaction video, that's it. This is hopefully going to be something that goes a little more in depth and tries to catch people up now that I've had a chance to sleep on it and have a chance to express kind of where I think there was fault and where I think that hopefully the community will go from here. So Scott switched over, and in the time leading up to the most recent expansion, right, our most recent game for Final Fantasy XIV, our sequel, if you will, or part 4. So we get into this, and he's been doing what's called minimum item level content. This is basically where he does end game bosses from before, old ones, but he does them at the minimum strength required. He's never seen them, he's never seen a guide on them, and he goes back and he tries to clear them blindly. It's incredibly engaging content because of the personality that he brings to it. He's fun, he's excited, he's loud, he's very animated, but he's also very bright. He has an immense amount of analysis, and so he's like a good sports announcer where he can make even encounters that would normally be boring or frustrating to watch very fun and light and engaging. But then for anybody that watches it and goes, I literally don't even know what I'm looking at, he provides an incredible amount of logic and analysis and easy to understand language that makes it something that's very palatable, very easy to just chew on and say, yes, I like watching that content, even though I may not engage with it myself. And so obviously the community was very excited for him to get into the most recent expansion content, because if he made content that we don't even do anymore fun, imagine what he would do with the stuff that we are excited to play. So we get into our most recent expansion, dropped June 28th. He spent a long time playing through the story, has done a great job immersing himself in the community and showing respect to the full gamut of what this game has to offer, and has decided to run the most recent endgame. That makes sense for somebody like him. So he gets into it, and endgame as of now, as of this recording, we're in the middle of a cycle around the same time that he got banned. I'm recording this, and we have a couple of things he can do. We have 2 fights that have an extreme version, a very difficult version, but ultimately you're talking in how many minutes those take to clear, not how many hours. They're 2 standalone fights, so once you get those down, you can do them over and over, week to week, no problem. Then we have what's called a raid. It's a 4-part sequence. You can pull each chapter individually, and it's only 4 fights long. And so each one takes a matter of minutes, not hours. And so the total experience is maybe an hour, maybe 2, once you get the hang of it. I assume that first week there were people that it took 4, 5, 6 hours to clear, but every week after you're talking just a couple of hours, possibly even 1 hour. If you just really knock it out, it's more than possible there are people that get through all 4 raids in under an hour. So his issue was with the quantity. He talked about how good the content design was. He talked about how he liked the music. He liked the encounters. He was excited that in 2 weeks from the time they drop, we get a savage version of them, a hard mode for those hardcore players, where this version is meant to be clearable by everybody with a little bit of effort. This version is really not. It's meant to be challenging, and if you aren't performing at that level, it will punish you. And it's for those players that are looking for that extra difficulty. And so in that time, he's saying, I wish there was more quantity. I wish there was a larger number. So yes, it was fun to do. It'll be fun to do with friends. It'll be fun to do with organized groups and all that. I'm looking forward to a difficulty increase. I enjoyed the music. I enjoyed the lore around it. I enjoyed all these things, but I wish there was a larger quantity. I wish it shifted more towards, and he he harkened back to his previous experiences of World of Warcraft. Just like we do when something comes up in our lives, it's natural for somebody to say, hey, I've had these previous life experiences. Let me kind of relate it back to those things so that I'm not just talking in a void. And so in World of Warcraft during the Burning Crusade, we had a bunch of raids, but one of the raids was Sunwell Plateau. Handful of bosses. You look at things like Tempest Keep and all that. You're looking at raids that have many of the raids were like Grohl's Lair. You're talking about raids that had 1 to 4 bosses. So once you get the hang of them, they're very quick, just like Eden. And then you have content like Karazhan, which he talked about, which is a great deal longer. I feel like it had more bosses than Serpentine Cavern and some of those others. So it's a much, much longer instance. And so he said Sunwell Plateau was seen as this much higher level content as far as the difficulty, but that Karazhan was more beloved long term because of its quantity, its depth. You could get immersed in this. It had encounters. It was this big, like, imagine haunted house, and you run in, and it had encounters where you could go in, and there was like different changes. There was the stage you walk onto, and it does a different play each week, and it pulls from a list randomly. So imagine Final Fantasy XIV players, if you walked in and there was an NPC that came out, they did a little bit of talking, and then they summoned a primal, but that primal pulled from a list, so you never know what you're going to get each week. So it adds a lot of longevity to the content. So Karazhan was very engaging for a very long time. It made for very long raid nights. Even once you were getting full clears, my raid groups were taking 2 and 3 nights to clear it, just because of the number of hours that we raided was not long enough to get through that much content. As opposed to once you got Sunwell under control, you just kind of knock it out, right? Once you got Grohl's Lair under control, you just kind of knock it out. And so I think that as you kind of compare these, there are people in the 14 community that really struggle with that. And so the 14 community has some really good qualities and some really rough qualities. And they come from the same place. They come from the same passion. And so to define it in a way outside of gaming, if you were to go out into like the political space and talk about it, it would be the term nationalism. So nationalism is where you care about about this one group that you're a member of, this nation, more so than any other nation, even to the detriment of other nations, and honestly more so than the individual people that make up that nation. It's a level of patriotism, it's a level of loyalty to the whole and forwarding the whole's agenda. It's not about one individual person's beliefs, it's not about anything more than the betterment of that nation. And so Final Fantasy XIV does that. It oftentimes alienates WoW players, it alienates other MMOs, it alienates other games. It will sometimes support other Final Fantasy games, but only if they're out by the same developer. And it oftentimes can do this at the detriment of other games. Now, yes, they welcome things in from time to time. So we saw Monster Hunter World come in, we saw Nier Automata's coming in. We've seen these crossover events, but as long as it's not getting in the way of 14. So when somebody from World of Warcraft comes in and has views that are different, just like in the political space, nationalism, the downside of it is that it often gets linked to furthering humans' natural tendency towards fear of the unknown, that xenophobia, that exclusionary aspect. That's a self-preservation technique. It's humans saying, hey, if somebody looks sick or somebody looks different than me, they might get me sick. So it's evolved into us, but it doesn't belong in gaming. And what we tend to do is we tend to be very welcoming on one hand. So when somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to be a member of this community, I'm all new, and I really want to like what you guys are liking. You say things like, this is my first time in a dungeon. I've been told, oh, slow down, turn the music up, enjoy it. And then I've been told, on the other hand, WoW players don't belong here. They bring toxicity. WoW players are the problem. This community was perfect before there were WoW players. So that's frustrating to see that, because it typically comes from a less well-rounded. They haven't gone and sought a lot more information beyond what they believed. They just know, this is what I think, and this is fine, and this is it. And I don't need more than this. And so it tends to come from an echo chamber, which is a lack of maturity and a lack of education. You're not getting the full spectrum. And challenging your own ideas leads to a deeper understanding. You're allowed to come back to point A. So if I go out to point B looking for information, that takes me to point C, point D, and then ultimately I go, you know what? I had it right all along. That's a deeper and more well-founded understanding of point A than if I just never left in the first place. And it's something that I think the community can struggle with. And so what happened here is he put out a video, link in the description below, of his thoughts on the Eden raid about this quantity. And what he got in response was a death threat. I'm sure he's gotten more than one because Brian and I get them and we don't. Yeah. Yes. I put out a video. I put out 2 videos on my thoughts on Shadowbringers. One with spoilers, one without spoilers. And the one with spoilers went into kind of my thoughts on the story, what I wish had been a little different. And I got a lot of really hateful comments. Thankfully, YouTube filter grabs several of them because the people who have that level of hate don't tend to be able to keep their content from using the F word and things like that. And so obviously the filter just automatically and they're gone. But there's enough of them that make it to my phone that feels really awesome. It's a great way to be told that I'm invalid because I disagree with somebody. I'm invalid as a person. And so to see Scott getting this to a much greater degree than what I've gotten or Brian's gotten, he was told, if you don't remove yourself from this community, I'll do it for you. Here's your address. I know where you live. Now, my understanding this came from a UK timestamp, but before I assume it's somebody from the UK, it's easier to just, you should kind of point inward. So if I'm going to call it from a country, I'm from the United States, let's call it from the United States. So here in the United States, that would be a felony. So I'm from the United States, so let's call it from the United States for the sake of argument, because I'm not going to just call out some other country. Here in the United States, that would be a felony. It's 100% against the rules. And so what then happened is Scott said, I want to talk about this on stream. I talk about things on stream. That's what he does for a living. He streams five hours at a time, I think like 5 or 6 days a week without fail. And so he shared it on stream. Now, to his knowledge, the person's email address was just a throwaway. When you Google it, it doesn't link to anything. It doesn't show from anything. But he shows the person's name. He says the person's name. He says the person's email. He spells it out and he shows it on screen. That is massively against terms of service from Twitch and is 100% bannable. And so he gets banned. It's a 30-day ban. Ideally, in my mind, that's just an arbitrary length of time that they assign because they know they're going to have to investigate and see if it ends up needing to result in a long-term ban or if it ends up needing to result in something shorter, if they can shorten it up. It also covers them from people saying they don't react to things like this. So it's a nice flat rule that says, you know what, we don't know how to make a rule that says you're allowed to be a dick as long as they're a bigger dick first. Instead, let's just make a flat rule, no personal information revealed, no threatening to reveal somebody's personal information. That's the rule. If you break it, you're out. And they're protecting their platform. It's not their job to investigate emails. It's not their job to, that's the authorities. So if it was an American, that would be the FBI to determine where that took place. If you had a more local jurisdiction, then you could go at a more local level to local police or something like that. It's a very frustrating thing to handle emotionally because what you're seeing is somebody over here committed murder and somebody over here ran a red light the same day, and you're seeing the red light guy go to jail and the murderer's still out on the loose. So it's very frustrating to see that somebody did something worse, and in his response, he's the one getting punished. But that's not how the rule of law works. You don't get to write the rules as you go. And so my initial reaction is, yes, Scott deserves the suspension under the context that he broke the rules. Not because of how he broke the rules, not because of why he broke the rules, not because he did it maliciously or he's a bad person or anything like that. Just simply, you don't get to say, I think the speed limit should be different in the city where I live. So rather than petition for a higher speed limit, vote for authorities that will get me a higher speed limit, rather than go and get the punishments for breaking the speed limit reduced, I'm just going to drive around at whatever speed I want. And when I get caught, I'm just going to tell them, well, I don't respect that rule, so I don't follow it. You're going to get arrested. Like, you're going to get tickets and eventually arrested. Period. That's what's going to happen. So you don't get to do that. You don't get to write it as you go. We all operate under the set of rules. And if we'd like those rules changed, that's fine, but we don't change them by breaking them. We change them by going out and seeking change. And so I do agree that he was suspended, rightfully so, because I saw the VOD. It's hard to find. I can't show it here because the same reason he got banned, because he chooses to put personal information in it. So there, I'll snip some of it on screen here, but you're welcome to go seek it out yourself. I found it. I'm sure you can. I'm just not going to link to it. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating because this other person will likely never have any punishment levied against them. Doesn't matter what country they live in. Odds are they will just be allowed to do whatever they want. Now, I've seen a fair number of Reddit threads and things saying this means that you can threaten the life of any Twitch streamer you want and they'll get a 30-day ban. No, because that's not what he got banned for. He didn't get banned because he was threatened. The person threatening him had no control over the ban. He got banned because he revealed somebody's email address. It wouldn't have mattered if that email was fan mail. It wouldn't have mattered if that email was a death threat. It doesn't matter. The suspension is entirely around his desire to reveal it. Now, what do I think Twitch should have done differently? Well, ideally, Twitch would label this as a suspension, saying, hey, it's been brought to our attention that there is video evidence of you doing this thing against our terms of service. We're going to take your channel offline, and then it can take up to 30 days for us to investigate this. Should the investigation be complete sooner, we would be happy to restore your channel to you. So that they can kind of say, hey, we've got to cover ourselves, but once we're done investigating this, and they will see that Scott wasn't malicious, that he believes that he was not revealing the person's real identity. He just called them the name that they chose to call themselves there in the video. And he doesn't feel that, I don't think he did anything wrong. I think he broke the rule, but I don't think there was anything wrong. I think he broke the rule on a technicality. And so I understand the initial suspension. Just like Brian and I have had videos taken down shortly. I know we've had a lot of content claims where for a brief amount of time, it puts our video in like a holding state where all the revenue is going to be turned over to somebody else, assuming we stole the content from them. And then after an appeal, we get our content back. And so we've gone through that a bunch of times because we've put out 1,600 videos. So of course some of them have been claimed, but we get them back because we don't steal content. So, it's usually because there's a trailer footage or there's a sound footage and it links that to somebody else. And honestly, a lot of times it's not even the game developer that claims it. It's like somebody else. So like IGN puts out a review that has trailer footage. And so it says, you guys are ripping from IGN. It's like, no. It's the trailer footage. It's public. And that company has chosen to make that trailer footage accessible to YouTubers and media outlets and said, you know what, we're not going to claim against it. We want you to spread our trailer. So to keep on topic here, that's what he did. He revealed personal information. And it doesn't matter if you rob a bank with a fake gun, you're still going to jail for it. So it's frustrating to parse through kind of him getting banned because you want there to be a more logical, common sense source of justice. You want to know that if some guy's being a dick in a restaurant, that a waiter can grab him by the collar and carry him out and not be basically charged with assault. And if that person's walking in and making death threats and things like that, it's why we have rules where like people can be let off for assaulting or injuring somebody else, or in some cases even killing somebody else for self-defense. But initially they get arrested. Initially they get investigated to make sure that that's what it was. And so I hope that Scott gets it back. And I believe before seeing this that Scott was likely in the right, but obviously I should see it. And so I went out and I sought out the VOD, and I stand by what Scott said. I wish he blocked out the name because this would have never been a thing. And so I do want to say, kind of wrapping that up a little, is, well, where do we go from here? What does the Final Fantasy XIV community learn from this? What does gaming in general learn from this? If you go to a party that's all people playing and talking about sports and you find one other person at the party that plays video games, but they play a different game than you, you don't hit them in the face. Like, that person has more in common with you than anybody else. And so I don't understand this desire for Final Fantasy XIV people in this instance, or, you know, and you could swap that out for any other group of gamers to say, I hope this other game dies, or I hope this other group of players never discovers the joy that I found in my game, that I got here by a certain date, and anybody after that date can get out. It doesn't make any sense. Like, none of us started playing this game. There was a time before Final Fantasy XIV. So we were doing something else with our lives, or we were playing something else, and now we're here, now we're playing this. And not everybody's been playing since launch. So people have joined along the way, and that's awesome. The game is getting bigger because it's good, and that will allow the game to do more. Maybe we do get more raid bosses next time because they have more funding. It's just illogical to reach out in this way. And I know that this person thinks that they were being respectful to the game by doing this, but they aren't. They look bad on behalf of the game. They look bad on behalf of all gamers. It just makes us look like petulant children. Just, well, I'm going to beat you up because you're wearing a blue shirt and I only like red shirts. It doesn't make any sense. I hope this person gets punished. I hope that they get investigated. Because of the anonymity of the internet, it's possible they don't. And I think that's the other reason people are very frustrated at this. It's very logical to be frustrated when you see something happening that you know nothing will change. It'd be really great if Google was like, oh, here's the IP address that was created from. It did break the law. Investigators looked it up. Guess your local police will be knocking on your door, buddy. It's frustrating because I feel conflicted. I do feel that Scott deserved to be taken offline, because the consequences of not taking offline are that any streamer that feels that somebody is threatening them or is breaking the rules in some way can be doxxed, whether they think they have that person's real identity or not. What if it is that guy's real name? What if Reddit goes and finds him? What if somebody goes and beats the crap out of him at his house? So, I don't know. That's my thoughts. That's kind of catching you guys up. Go watch Brian's video. Go watch Scott's video. There's got to be a way to support Scott through this. While I do feel like I feel like I've been clear on why, but I do feel that Scott deserves this break while Twitch investigates. I do hope he gets his channel back and think he deserves his channel back. There wasn't malintent here. There wasn't a great breach. It was his first offense. And he believed that it wasn't the person's real identity. Upon further investigation, it will probably look like it wasn't the person's real identity. There doesn't seem to be a way to find this person based off of the information he revealed, as opposed to this other person threatening his life with his address. So I think that what I do want is a way to support Scott. So he's obviously lost his Twitch subscription button. I don't know what this does to that revenue while you're in suspension, but I do hope that there's a way to support him. I don't see the membership button on his YouTube channel yet. I've reached out to him to told him, hey, if your YouTube channel is big enough to turn that on, you should turn that on. Because I know that, and hopefully other people will ask the same, because I know that he's told me that he's good. When he reached out to Brian and I, he said that he's good and he's fine and he's going to be okay. But doesn't really matter. I think that I want to, I would love to find a way to support him. So if any of you have a donation link to his Twitch page or whatever, definitely feel free to kind of share that below. Just as a warning, everybody please vet that, just in case anybody below wants to put any donation link they want. And I've reached out. If Scott gets me a donation link that's official, it'll go in the description of this video. And definitely feel free to at least go and toss him the $5 for the 30 days, right? That's what he would have gotten. He would have gotten $5 for everybody that he'd entertained during this 30 days. And so to anybody that goes and watches YouTube content, try to watch it without ad block, watch those pre-rolls, go watch a bunch of his backlog stuff. If you're somebody who watched him stream for 5 hours a day, go turn on a playlist of his, go turn on his videos and just watch them back to back to back and let the ads roll. That's all I can think to do. Leave him positive comments on Twitter and on that, reminding him that we're lucky to have him. That the community, any MMO community is lucky to have somebody like him. Content creators are already a very small portion of the population, and within that, Brian and I can't be Scott. We don't bring that energy. We don't bring that level of analysis. We don't. Simply being a creator isn't Scott. Scott is somewhere higher, and we're lucky to have him. And there are other people who are probably capable of being a Scott who haven't become streamers or YouTubers for a set of reasons like this or others, and so we have to cherish the ones we get. And I look forward to Scott coming back at the end of this 30 days or sooner. And I hope that he enjoys the content. I think that he has a right to have an opinion. I think his opinion is well-founded. And I think that threatening violence is so far from acceptable. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. I feel like I've rambled on long enough. I tried to give full context to everything and tell you guys why I feel that Scott, yes, got his suspension, and that they weren't just like blindly lashing out at him, and that it wasn't because he got threatened. But I hope this other person comes to justice, and I hope that ultimately Scott is lifted and that we can find a way to support him. That's the summary. My name's Chris with Work to Game. Have a better day. And go watch Scott's videos.